Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to welcome the audience to our webinar. It's great to be here. Thank you, UNIDO, for hosting us. My name is Amy Rafat. I am a private sector specialist with IFC's Global Employability Program, VTI, and I will be moderating this webinar. In this session, we're going to dig deeper into the theme of the forum, how to advance digital skills for an inclusive future, by looking at how we can advance digital skills at scale, especially to underserved populations. In the modern world, obviously, digital skills are becoming essential for people to work and contribute effectively to society, but we also know that youth in the developing world are falling behind on this front, and we know that is what our audience, you care about the most, providing youth with the skills that will help them prosper through taking up good jobs and thus creating this inclusive future. We're going to look at what some progressive educators and a big tech company are doing to address this rising digital skill gap, and also what IFC is doing in this space. Hopefully this will inspire you, the audience, with ways to support and ways to collaborate to achieve our goal of an inclusive future. We have selected our speakers to represent different ways of addressing the issue. And now I'm delighted to introduce our speakers, our guest speakers representing the panel. Representing big tech companies, we have Wanjira Kamwere, the Business Development Manager for Skills Initiatives at Microsoft in Africa. We have Professor Peter Osei Boamah, who I'm not sure if maybe he's having some issues logging on. Hopefully he'll be joining us. Professor Vice-Chancellor at Bolgatanga Technical University in Ghana. And representing the second education institution on our panel is Harold Wilson, Director of the Center for Online and Distance Education at Central University, also in Ghana. And from the IFC, the World Bank Group, we have Tania Lozanski, the Senior Manager of the Manufacturing, Agriculture and Services Unit, Advisory Services, and Dina Nicholas, the Global Lead for the Employability Program, VTI. I'm sure you will have detailed questions for our speakers, so we will have a questions and answer session during the second half of our webinar. I'd like to encourage you to send over your questions to the Q&A box, which is different to the chat box. If you could keep the Q&A box dedicated to questions, that would be much appreciated, as it would make it easier for us, the panel, to find the questions. You will find both icons on the right-hand side of your screen. Before we move on to our panel discussion, we would like to give you the conclusions of a recent joint IFC World Bank study we conducted in Africa on the challenges and opportunities for digital upskilling. I'd like to hand over to Tania to give you that brief. Over to you, Tania.
Thank you very much, Amy, and hello, everybody. Also, thanks from me to UNIDO for organizing this important event. So for those of you who may not be familiar with IFC, we're actually an investor in private sector in emerging markets, and education sector is one of our core areas of focus, whereby we both invest in private sector education providers and also provide them with advisory services to help them improve their operations. And as Amy mentioned, about a year ago, we decided to shine a light on what's happening with digital skills under the Digital Economy for Africa initiative, together with the World Bank. And we started first with an in-depth look on Ghana, and then subsequently followed it up by an analysis of 5 countries, Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, Mozambique, and Nigeria, to try to really unpack the whole supply-demand equation of digital skills. And we did it because it's important both for the education sector, who's trying to meet this demand, but also importantly for policymakers and regulators, because I think, as we've heard in prior sessions, governments have a very important role to play in terms of setting up the enabling environment for the delivery of digital skills. And so I'd like to share with you some of the highlights. I mean, obviously you can read the study, but to frame the discussion, I think some of the things that we found were quite interesting. The first major finding is that the continent of Sub-Saharan Africa is going to have 230 million digital jobs by 2030. So that's a huge number. And what was interesting is that 70% of the demand is not what we typically think about when we think about digital skills, right? So I think traditionally we think about digital skills as being IT related or e-commerce related, but 70% of that demand is actually in basic digital skills across all sectors, starting from agribusiness through health services, through other sectors of the economy, right? So it's really that basic level that's going to be driving the demand, the foundational skills, and it's across all sectors. So I think that was a very important finding. And if you're looking at what we think traditionally about as digital skills, right, the ICT, the high end, that's actually only 7% of the demand. The bulk of the rest is for more intermediate skills, again, for all sectors. And so I think the outcome of that is essentially digital skills has to become a new literacy, right? So you learn digital skills at the same time that you learn your math, your reading, and your writing. So it has to start. It has to start there. And then unsurprisingly, what we found is a huge gap in terms of supply and demand, right? So despite the fact that demand is so huge, jobs are just not being filled. And I have to say that this is not an issue just for Africa. I think some of you may have seen over the summer, there was a similar analysis published on the UK, which I think said about 30% of vacancies in the UK are going unfilled because of the lack of digital skills, and it's costing the economy upwards of £2 billion per year, right? So it's not just an issue in Africa, but I think in Africa it's exacerbated. And this means that what got us here really won't get us there, right? So how do we actually completely rethink the delivery of digital skills and scale, and how do we do it in innovative ways between the public and the private sector? There are good news. So the good news is that the demand in terms of training opportunities is also a very good business opportunity for companies. So we've estimated that between now and 2030 in Sub-Saharan Africa alone, that training opportunity is upwards of $130 billion, right? So it's not small. But what's really interesting is that the bulk of that is going to have to be met through models that go from business to business, including traditional brick and mortar educational institutions, but also business to government, right? It's not going to be filled through business to consumer models, which is how we're traditionally used to thinking about it, largely because of affordability issues, right? And so 80% of the demand is really in these innovative ways that people can partner across the public and the private sector. And I think the challenge is also, how do you completely change the delivery model in terms of what people learn, right? With a much stronger focus on what the private sector and the companies need, right? So really a focus on skills. We have to focus on when people learn, right? It's not just the students who are going through their normal education phase, but it's also people who need to be reskilled and retrained. In fact, the data we have shows that approximately half of the training opportunities are going to be for reskilling and upskilling workers who are already in the workforce. And then when, right? So we're no longer talking about, learning as a thing you do in your period in life, but really lifelong learning. And so I think what's really interesting is that collectively we have to find new models of making it work, right? I'm really excited to hear from the panel today about what we're already doing, what companies are already doing. But it's also about how do we change some of the partnerships between the regulators, the education providers, to actually explore new models and do this at scale and do this quickly. So without much further ado, Amy, I'll hand it back to you. And I think it should be a really interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Boamah. So for that, Tania. And I can see, Professor Boamah has just joined us. Hello, Professor Boamah.
Hello, Amy.
Okay. So within that context that Tania's just presented to us, we'd like to hear what the panel is doing to work on this clearly imperative issue, which is making sure that youth are receiving these basic and intermediate digital skills. So let me start with you, Professor Boamah. As we understand that you have embarked on at the Bolgatanga Technical University on a number of steps to advance the digital skills of your students. Could you tell us what exactly you've done to achieve this?
Thank you so much, Amy, for the question. So the first step that we took was computer and digital skills training where all students are required to take a course in information and communication technology. Then most of the academic departments also offer advanced ICT courses as part of their curriculum. And the second step was for student access to the computers. So all the ICT laboratories are accessible to students, and plans are also far advanced for evening and weekend access to the ICT laboratories. But this requires staffing. Then computers in the library halls are also available for students to do their research and learning. Then the third step was access to online learning resources. So we have deployed two options. That is the Google Classroom and the custom built e-learning platform through the university's website. And the last step that we took was access to the internet. So we have a wireless network infrastructure that has been provided to offer internet access to students and staff, and about 70 to 80% of the students have signed up for the wireless access.
Okay, that's quite an achievement. So if I were to summarize very quickly, you've given your students access to computers on campus, access to internet on campus, access to online learning resources, and number 4, digital skills training, i.e. training on computer literacy for everyone. Okay, wow. That sounds like quite an achievement. And could I so what was the total cost for this this project, and how long did it take to finalize, especially on the connectivity, like internet connectivity?
All right, thank you very much for the question. So the total cost in Ghana cedis was about 66,000, but in US dollars, $10,945.27. $10,945.27 in US dollars. Yes, but in Ghana
That's
cedi,
very specific.
in Ghana cedi about 66,000. It took the university, I think, roughly 3 years to create a campus-wide wireless network, and we have provided access to students and staff at key facilities. So we are anticipating that in the next 2 years, we need to create a fiber backbone on campus so that we can bring a fiber line onto campus. So we need extra 2 years to be able to bring a fiber backbone on campus in order to have the fiber link onto BTU, that's Bolgatanga Technical University.
Right. Okay. So 3 years. It's taken you a while. So pre-COVID, you were thinking about this, and for the budget, as a public university, technical institute, I would imagine you needed the government's approval on this. How did that work? Like, what was the interaction? How did you come up with this budget? How did you get the budget from the government?
Thank you very much for the question. So the ICT Directorate, they prepared the budget and they submitted it to the Vice-Chancellor. But because it's a capital-intensive project, the Vice-Chancellor forwarded it to the Council of the University, so the Governing Council of the University, for approval. And after that, the goods and services has to go through the procurement processes. Because it's a government institution, we need to satisfy all the procurement laws in the country. So it went through all the procurement processes. Yes.
Okay, that's really interesting for us to know, because our clients, we've seen sometimes struggle with putting together a plan and a budget. So you depended on your internal ICT department to do that, and that's what you put forward to the relevant government agency.
That's true.
Correct?
That is true.
Okay, great. And what was your main motivation with this, since I can see you've obviously embarked on it before COVID, to shift to an online and give access to digital skills to your students?
Thanks again for this question. So, we needed to transform from a polytechnic to a technical university. And that was one of the requirements. But you need to provide the internet connectivity as well as computer literacy to your students. And the COVID-19 also reinforced us for the need for the online learning strategies to be implemented. So prior to COVID-19, and COVID-19 also motivated us to do this. Yeah.
Right, okay. And if I may ask, because this would help us understand what kind of challenges this puts forward for an institution, what kind of challenges did you as an education institution face when transforming to this digitally like this and disseminating these digital skills to your students?
Okay, so there's lack of internet access offsite. If the student move off campus, they don't have internet access. And again, almost 50% of the students don't have internet access at home. They don't have internet at home. And they also lack devices that can support this application. So most of them don't have a laptop to be able to access this digital information that we wanted them to access.
Right, so a lot of them don't have access to internet offsite nor computers.
Yeah.
We understand that students access their classes and education material through their phones sometimes. I wanted to verify that with you. Is that an alternative? Does that help? Let's say they have a phone but no computer. Obviously, they need internet access. Does that work as an alternative in some cases?
Yes. The issue is that if the students, if they have a smartphone, then they can access the university's wireless network at selected facilities. If they have a smartphone, a phone that can support the applications. But there are a large section of the student population who do not own Wi-Fi capable mobile devices. They don't have devices that can support the Wi-Fi. So if you are using a phone that cannot support these devices, then it will not solve the problem, because you should have a smartphone that can support these digital applications. If not, then you can have a phone. The phone is not smartphone, then you can't access the internet.
Right. So it depends on. So even their phones are not also always.
Yes. Yeah, it depends on the type of phone that they are using.
Right. And after going through this experience, which is quite a big achievement, this digital transformation and creating access to internet for your students and transforming to blended learning, what would be your advice to other education institutions that would like to transform digitally like yourself?
Yeah, so my first advice would be that they should be in a position to train both students and staff to the same level of digital skills. And they should also invest in fully networking on their campuses. Then again, they should invest in a fast internet connection, then invest in ICT facilities, and also they should invest in a data center and related infrastructures. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's the first point was a really interesting one, which is training both your staff and students, which I will come back to in a minute. So thank you very much, Professor Boamah, for sharing your insights. As I'd mentioned earlier, big tech companies are also very active in this space of digital skills. So let's hear from Wanjira what exactly they do. Could you tell us, Wanjira, about Microsoft programs in Africa? Focused on digital skills, with a focus perhaps on your work in the post-secondary education space, because I understand you work in other spaces as well, and reskilling. As Tania was saying, these are two big opportunities.
Yes, so for us at Microsoft, and I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amy, and all the rest of the panelists and UNIDO for giving us this opportunity to present some of the works and initiatives that we are undertaking as Microsoft worldwide and maybe specific to Africa. So just to start is we've established that the way organizations organize their work is changing. So there's definitely a shift in the way enterprises organize their work, and then how people find work, and the skills that people need to prepare for work. We found like artificial intelligence, which is automating more of the tasks in the workplace, and being able to access computing anywhere, which is where the cloud comes in, have become driving forces for a lot of the changes that are happening in our environment, and specifically in the workplace. And what we found is we as big tech need to do a better job to prepare our students with the skills so that they're able to take advantage of the huge potential there is to really drive change in these industries. So we've seen a huge demand, not in all industries. And when we look at, for example, so as Microsoft, we look at LinkedIn today, and we found that even the jobs that have the hugest demand. So they're not just technical roles. We found, for example, customer service, digital marketing, really skyrocketing in terms of the number of jobs that are available for students and people in the workforce today. So as an example, I think, Tania, you talked about how the need for technology in the UK. We found here that Africans are now being able to go online and perform some of these duties from wherever they are, leveraging technology. So those are some of the trends that we are seeing, and hence it is very important for us to prepare students on this journey of technology, just starting from all the way in primary school, where we want to spark kids' curiosity with STEM, with science, technology, engineering, and math, and computer science. So they start learning a purpose for learning. And then in high schools, where we want to start inculcating productivity skills for students, so enabling them to learn how to collaborate better, to communicate, and to start leveraging computational thinking. So all this we start from high school. And then when we get to higher education, this is where we find we need to support our students and our educators with future-ready skills. So 4 areas where we are involved is we are supporting educators in teaching new technology concepts, and I think Professor Boamah started alluding to that, educating students to be future-ready with the right technology skills, empowering institutions with the right curriculum and certification, because certification will be very important in the future, and then connecting institutions with corporations so that you're being able to really teach skills that are needed in the workplace today, and also enable students to be employable in these upcoming industries. So for higher education, we know that the faculty and educators really need more access and support from technology companies like ourselves. So what we try and do is we are helping them with curriculum that is very relevant to the workplaces today. And from that perspective, we have it's a portal, actually it's a learning portal, which is available to all academic institutions at no cost. And the students and the faculty members can design their own learning path. It's called Microsoft Learn. You can actually search for that online, and you'll be able to start getting content and skills that are aligned to the learning path that you would like, that are available to students and faculty members at any time that they need the training. So it's not just about formal education that's happening in the classrooms. It's learning that they can do on their own time. And I think even Tania alluded to this as well. It's all about lifelong learning. Learning just doesn't happen in academic institutions. We need to continuously upskill ourselves if we want to be competitive in the workplace today. The other one that we do is we try and ensure that if you go to Microsoft Learn, you'll find the learning there is based on different roles. And this is, of course, to support our students and faculty members be able to skill themselves in the training that is relevant for the role that they would like to explore. Microsoft and LinkedIn are now one company, so we also ensure that the young people are accessing have a portal through LinkedIn where they can be able to look at jobs and opportunities that are available for them. And for that, we have a tool called Career Coach. And this actually helps students start, even when they're still in academic institutions, start thinking about what courses or what skills should I be undertaking as I prepare myself for my own future so that I can be successful. And you can look for Career Coach as well online. Thank you, Amy.
Wow, yeah, that's quite an offering there of services you have for education institutions and the students themselves. We've heard from Professor Boamah about the challenges they face as a university when trying to upscale the digital skills. I'd like to ask you the same question. So he mentioned access to internet off campus for students and access to computers off campus as well. What are the barriers you face when you're trying to scale up these digital skills and offer it?
So I think they're similar to academic institutions, but from the flip side. So for us, what we would like to do is we avail a lot of these resources online, which means internet access is very critical. The infrastructure that you need to be able to access all these resources. So the devices, availability to access to devices, to the internet access so that you can be able to access all this content and data. So I think they're very similar, but what we would like to even say is we would like to encourage a lot of academic institutions to set aside resources, just the same way as Professor Boamah talked about their investment in the infrastructure. Because without that infrastructure, it will be very difficult for either the faculty members or the students to be able to leverage all the resources that are being provided by by organizations like ourselves. So we really want to encourage them to really think about making that investment. It's an investment for the future. We've heard about the types of jobs that will be available. And as an institution, the way you become competitive is when you're offering relevant skills for students.
Right. And what about in your interactions with education institutions? Let's say the access to the internet is there and the devices are there. Are there any issues with the staff themselves? Is it normally very, very smooth? Is there some reluctance sometimes? What are you seeing?
So what we've seen sometimes is there is, and Professor Boamah maybe could also add to this, is there's an adoption. So we have challenges with getting the faculty members to actually adopt the technology. We know that, remember now we are starting teaching technology skills to children when they're very young. So sometimes a faculty member may feel intimidated that the younger person may know more technology than themselves and be afraid to embrace it. So that is one of the challenges and that we found when we are engaging with academic institutions, is actually ensuring that the academia themselves are actually adopting the technology and using it and leveraging it to teach and themselves learn. So because they also have to upskill themselves.
Right, yes, exactly. And that's where I wanted to loop back here to Professor Boamah, because you had talked about earlier as one of the things that you did as one of the actions, main actions, is skilling or training your staff as well on the digital skills and making sure, I think you said that you're quoting you as making sure they have the same level of digital skills as your students. So could I ask you to comment on that? How was that? What was the reaction of your staff?
Thanks so much, Amy, for the question. Yes, indeed, most staff, they were reluctant due to the lack of skills and knowledge. And so the ICT Directorate has to organize training for the staff. And again, we also have online training as well, where they can visit and up their skills and knowledge. Then we also had to do some training, and the training must be consistent, and it should be readily available to the staff who need it. And this also requires resourcing, staffing, and facilities dedicated solely for staff and students so that they can up their skills and knowledge in digital platforms. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So making all those trainings available to maybe avoid their fear of this. And one other quick question of this, did you find you needed to provide some kind of incentive, like was it included in their evaluations? Because change is difficult. Like because I've worked with education institutions before, and this has always been like you have a champion in the institution, but they find it very difficult to push their faculty, the rest of the faculty, to do it, because they're like, why would I do all this? I like the way I'm doing my job.
Can you repeat the question again?
So just asking if you had to find creative ways of motivating your staff to do this. To learn the skills that they needed to learn, because it's difficult to learn new skills.
You are right. Yeah, you are right. So we tasked the ICT Directorate to be able to up the skills and the knowledge of the staff, because as you said, adoption definitely you face some resistance. So they were motivated, the staff were motivated, and we told them that in the era of COVID-19, the way out is digitization. So without digitization, you cannot up your skills. So they were motivated, and they adopted the skills and the knowledge that we wanted them to come on board with.
And there's the silver lining of COVID-19. This is going to make your job easier, hopefully, Wanjira. So I'd like to look back to you. Thank you, Professor Boamah, for that. That's really helpful. Going back to you, Wanjira, you were talking about the challenges that you faced. Any other challenges besides like working with the university, working with like motivating faculty? Any other challenges?
Yes, so I think the other challenges that we would like to bring for further discussion here is how we engage with governments, with policymakers, to ensure that the cost of infrastructure, so devices, internet access, and data, are favorable for stakeholders in educational institutions. We would like to, it's important that students maybe get some subsidized rates for data as compared to young people who are already in the workforce, because really remember that it's very important for our country when you have an educated workforce. So if there is a way through initiatives that are implemented by governments in which for example, we have countries like Rwanda, which have local assembly for devices within their country that are specific for education. So that could be one way of availing devices at very low cost for specific for students. Collaborating with large telcos, so with Vodacom or Vodafone within the continent, so that you're able to put together packages that are pertinent and relevant for young people, for people in educational institutions, both faculty members and the students alike, because they really need to get access to a lot of this data so that they can be able to get content and curriculum that's available to them anywhere. And exactly when we talk about COVID has changed the way we work, the way we go to school, the way we do literally everything. So if I'm learning a lot, there's remote learning that's now happening. And so that we're ensuring that the learning experience is very student-centered, you need to avail data at affordable costs.
Right, that's really interesting because obviously this is the number one problem for digital skills. I mean, if you don't have the access to the internet or the computers, you can't teach those kind of skills. So Rwanda obviously has one kind of system here. I might look back to that during the Q&A, as I can see there is a question on that. What I'd like to do now, though, is it would be interesting to hear, I think at this point, what IFC is doing in this space. So I'd like to move to Dina and ask you, Dina, if you could tell us what IFC is doing to help education institutions on employability, because that's the program we work on, and how that links to digital skills. And perhaps you could also touch upon work with the government, which since Wanjira brought this up.
Thanks a lot, Amy, and thank you, UNIDO and participants. It's great to be here. So indeed, digital skills are increasingly important, and we know that higher education institutions, regulators, and training providers are thinking about and actioning incorporating digital skills into the curriculum and learning process. But of course, digital skills are part of a larger set of transferable skills that generally make an individual employable and employed, right? And this despite disruptions to job markets caused by things like technological change. So lists of these transferable skills, sometimes referred to as core employability skills, change. Different organizations put out updated lists every few years, but these are things like critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. Another group really deals with working with others and communication, collaboration skills, client orientation. And then finally, there are skills considered to be essential employability skills that are really focused around self-management, right? Dependability, time management, but also openness to learning and flexibility to make oneself consistently relevant to the needs of a changing job market. So the question for us at IFC is, how can higher education institutions provide relevant employability skills to their students, as well as current technical skills? And we developed an assessment process that allows higher education institutions to understand how well they're doing in terms of setting themselves up for preparing students for the job market. And this work really grew out of our activities with investing in higher education. So IFC is the International Finance Corporation, and we're the private sector arm of the World Bank. So we work with companies in developing countries, and we invest in these companies. We've been working with higher education for about 20 years. And increasingly, we found that our clients were asking for employability support, right? How do we know if the services that we're providing our students are best in class? What else can we be doing to support student employability? And so our education specialists developed an assessment process that allows any higher education institution or really training provider to baseline their current practices and it recommends specific improvements to the institution. The institution at the end of the process gets an employability score based on an analysis of the practices they use, as well as the feedback of stakeholders, such as students, alumni, employers. They also get bespoke findings and recommendations on how to improve their employability practices. Because remember, we originally developed this as a value-added service for our investment clients. So we're interested in making sure that this is not just an assessment tool, but also a tool that allows higher education institutions to learn from going through the process. And it really looks at 5 areas that our education specialists have identified as critical to employability. So the first is governance and strategy. To what extent are employability KPIs tracked and measured? Are they incorporated into the institution's strategy? And what are the mechanisms for data collection, such as alumni tracer studies, that support this process? A second area that we look at in these employability assessments is relevance of learning. So how are labor market needs built into the academic curriculum and the learning process? What are the mechanisms for review and updating of technical requirements in particular fields, as well as how employability skills and digital skills are incorporated into the learning process? So this is the piece that really looks at the skills portion. A third area that we look at is services. So this is career services and guidance for students. How is this delivered? Who delivers it? With what frequency? We also look at how alumni are attracted back to the institution, right? And we know that this kind of network effect has been used by business schools for years, as well as some leading higher education institutions, right? This is a question about how alumni can serve as employability agents to support the employability of current students. In fact, our data shows, the student surveys that we've run, that more than half of recent graduates find work at companies where at least one other graduate of their school is working. And it's about 40% at least 5 other graduates. So these network effects, whether they're overt, whether the institution is really working on this or not, they're actually quite significant, is what we're finding from studies of alumni. And the final area that we look at is how employers are involved on campus and attracted to campus. This is internships, work integrated learning opportunities, applied research, and industry partnerships. And after the assessment, IFC provides support to assessed institutions to help them implement recommendations coming from assessment. We've worked with more than 50 institutions in the past 2 years, and we've recently developed an online portal to really scale this work and provide a free basic employability assessment to any higher education institution that's interested. So you can see more at vitaready.org. This is our website, and I'm happy to answer additional questions in the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dina, for that. So now we also know how the IFC functions in this space. What I'd like to do, so I can see how you were able to join finally. So maybe I'll loop back to you and ask you. We've had a discussion about what Bolga Technical University did to advance digital skills, what Microsoft in Africa is doing on this. So maybe we could hear from you what Central University has done, what steps you've taken to move forward on your digital transformation and turning into blended learning. You're on mute, by the way. There.
All right. Thank you very much. So we embark on initial blended learning system, which combined online and face-to-face learning. First, we assess the digital and IT needs of the students, and then realized that we had a lot to do. So we organized sequence of workshops and training to address those needed skills.
Right. And so you started off with an assessment of the needs of your students. Could you tell us, because this is interesting to the discussion we had earlier and a study IFC has conducted, what kind of digital skills did you find missing? Are these like really basic working with a computer, internet research? Or are you talking about something more advanced?
Interestingly, we realized that Microsoft skills to use the usage of documents and how to conduct internet searches. We found that we're deficient to the extent that we had about 60 to 70% deficiency in this skill set.
Right. Okay. So you conducted trainings to upskill your students so that they were able to use a computer, open up a Word document, and do a basic internet research.
Those basic, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And did you conduct the same thing for your staff members?
Yes, we did same. And surprisingly, they also were deficient in the usage of those basic skills. They were deficient in that. So yes.
Right. Okay. No, that links up again to what Wanjira you were saying earlier about that being one of the barriers, and Professor Boamah has also indicated that was something they needed to do. So what were the challenges that you as an institution faced when you were conducting this digital transformation?
Well, so there were two main challenges we faced. One was ensuring the integrity of the exams and figuring out how to supervise exams remotely.
Mm-hmm.
The second challenge we had was infrastructure, access to data and devices. When working from home, many students had unstable internet connectivity in their various places of residence. So those were the two main challenges we had.
Right. So, and then that, again, this links back to what Professor Boamah was saying and what Wanjira was saying, lack of internet access and computers. So what did you do to, and I would imagine this is off-site, what did you do to address that problem?
Well, on campus, we provided, we had a computer lab where students can easily access. And then we also engaged Vodafone to network, telecommunication network, Vodafone and MTN, that helps students access internet off campus. They are allowed to upload what we call the zero-rated learning management system. So students could upload and download materials from our learning management system for free. They wouldn't have to pay anything, because of the arrangement we had with the two internet telecommunication networks.
Right, and I think this is what you were mentioning earlier, Wanjira, about creating connections or certain collaborations with communication companies to make this easier. And just so we understand what exactly this kind of agreement entails. So you as an institution, Central University, had an arrangement with Vodafone and NTM, which gave data access to your students off campus.
Precisely. So long as you use their internet, that is, their network, accessing our learning management system, you wouldn't have to pay for data. It's free. But any other network that you use to access our learning management system, you would have to take care of the bill yourself. Right.
So as long as they're using your network, then it's for free. If they're looking at other sites, that's not free.
No, it's not free at all.
Okay.
It's free for the learning management system.
Right. Okay. That sounds like a really good possible solution to one of this big problem. And could I ask, Harold, where you got? Did you fund this digital transformation yourselves? Did you get help from the Ghanaian government? How did it? Where did it come from?
Unfortunately, we have to do it ourselves. We wish we had the government's intervention, but that wasn't the case. As a private institution, you have to do mostly everything by your own self. So.
Okay, that's good to know. So you were able to pull this budget. You could see the potential and the need, and you made it happen. I mean, that's a really that's a great achievement.
Exactly. Of course, we still have some. It's not 100%, but at least we've made good strides, and we would be glad to have more help.
So here I'm going to move to the question and answer forum. I can see there's one question for you, Wanjira, about this project or this initiative in Rwanda that includes provision of devices. That's one, and then so after that I'll loop back to another question that I have if there's no more questions from the audience.
And Amy, I'm not able. Maybe you could repeat that question for me, please?
Sure. You were talking earlier about the government of Rwanda helping with the provision of computer devices in some way for students. Could you tell us what that system is? Like, what has the government of Rwanda done exactly to help?
Okay, so the government of Rwanda actually collaborated with one of the large device manufacturers. They are a company that has actually also works with the government of Portugal, based out of South America. I think they're from Brazil specifically. And what they did is they facilitated and created the right environment for, it's a company called Positivo, to come and set up a device assembly plant actually in Rwanda. Now, those devices are actually deployed in high schools and in universities in Rwanda. So the government created the enabling environment for them to be able to come and do this. So what this does is that you will find in a lot of you'll find in a lot of private institutions, they will have a lot of labs. More often than not, sometimes the students may actually have their own devices, but this may not necessarily be the case in public institutions. So the government created that environment where this organization could actually come, assemble the devices there, which means bringing down the costs and ensuring more of them are available within the public school system in Rwanda.
Right. So the government just by making it possible to assemble the computers locally brought down the cost massively, and then students, or at least public institutions, were able to buy them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're easily deployed to schools across the whole country.
Right. Okay. That's a great example. So what I'm going to do now, since there are no more questions from the audience, is actually ask the panel. I'm going to ask Harold first and Professor Boamah if you have any questions for Wanjira. So since you have Microsoft on your panel here, what are your asks from Microsoft? I'll start with you, Harold, and then move to Professor Boamah. Would you like to go first? I think, you're on, yes. You're thinking about it, Harold.
Well, for us, device has been a big issue for us. You realize that when there's a need for device, most of the students used their mobile phones, and was not very helpful with their exams and their learning. So if there is any help we can get from Microsoft in terms of devices, will be of great help to us, because it seems to be one of the main challenges we have at the moment for both lecturers, faculty, and students.
Okay, I'll leave that one with you, Wanjira. If you can figure out a way for Microsoft to do that, maybe help another government deploy the same system in Rwanda. But I'll leave that with you. Okay, there's the ask. And I'll move to Professor Boamah. What would your ask be from Microsoft?
Thanks very much, Amy, who asked for only 4 things. So if Microsoft could offer us Microsoft software licensing for just educational purposes. So then if we can have educational and research access to the Microsoft Azure services. Then the third one, if we could have Microsoft OneDrive licensing for institutional data backup. Then the last one, maybe partnership to offer Microsoft certified training and courses. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that one, I know that Microsoft is doing some of this, so I'll let you respond. I think one or two of those things are already on offer. Would you? But I'll let you talk. You know best, Wanjira.
Okay, and thank you very much, Amy, and thank you very much, Professor and Harold, for those questions. So the device discussion is a larger, longer discussion because it entails third parties as well. We need policy makers to get involved, governments, and the device providers as well to come together to see what kind of offers or offerings we can avail for educational institutions. So that could be a longer discussion that we may not be able to have on our session today. But I think one of the ones that we talked, and I talked about this as part of, when I was at the beginning of on the first question, is as Microsoft, we are very interested and invested in ensuring that academic institutions have access to the right curriculum and the right curriculum that is very relevant to what is needed in the workplace today. So as industry, we are trying to ensure that we have a continuous work pool of young people who are able to come and work in organizations, in our organization. I'll give you an example. Today in Africa, we have just implemented development centers. So we're actually developing Microsoft software in Africa. And we've got our development centers in Nigeria and in Kenya. And one of the things we've done is we've employed a lot of young software developers from both Kenya and Nigeria. And one of the challenges we are finding is we're not being able to find as much, we continue to look for the right talent to be able to develop this software that has to meet best-in-class standards. So we are very invested in ensuring that our academic institutions are being able to upskill young people so that they are ready for us in our workplace. And not even just in Microsoft, but also in our ecosystem. So we work a lot with partners. So we want to ensure that the partners in our ecosystem also have the right skills, because that's the only way the market will grow within Africa. So we avail, and the links have been shared by Karen on the chat. You will find a lot of curriculum that is available there that you can customize to what is required within your institutions. And a lot of it also has certifications. And these certifications, we also have subsidized costs for certification within academic institutions as compared to what is available for people when they're already in the workplace. So through portals, we have a program called Microsoft Emerging Academy. You can actually be able to include that in your learning management system, avail those courses to your students and your faculty members, and they'll be able to certify there as well. We also have interesting curriculum for artificial intelligence. We have something called the AI Business School, and through Karen, we will share links to that as well. So instead of reinventing, and this is a curriculum that helps industry within the faculty really understand how to incorporate AI and how AI is going to change the way we work. So those are just a few examples, but a lot of them you can find on the links that have been shared.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Wanjira. And we have 1 minute left, and I think it's only fair that you be given the same opportunity to have your ask of the education institutions. What do you as Microsoft ask the education institutions to do so that you can do your job better?
And just to reiterate, we really we encourage you to embrace this curriculum embrace this curriculum that's available for educators, especially, so that they actually have the right skills to be able to teach these skills to the young people. So adopt all this curriculum is available online. Encourage your faculty members to adopt it, so that they're at the same level, or even they should be higher level than the students themselves. And I like Professor Mbao talked about investing as an academic institution. So you really need to look for these relevant partnerships and invest in the infrastructure that is needed to deploy and to avail this curriculum and resources, so that we are actually bringing up young people who are ready have future-ready skills for the workplace of today. Thank you, Amy, for that opportunity.
Thank you so much. I mean, this has been great. I love the interaction here. I can see we've started a conversation. I would have liked to go even deeper, but unfortunately the session is up. We're going to have to wrap up, but we learned some really good points about how education institutions are embarking on digital transformation, what big techs are doing in this space, what IFC is doing to help institutions, and how important it is just to bring up the basic and intermediate digital skills. So thank you very much to our speakers, Wanjira, Harold, Professor Boamah, and our IFC speakers, Tania and Dina, for taking the time to share your knowledge. And thank you everyone for joining. I hope you are inspired to move forward on digital upskilling and collaborating with others, and you have some good ideas here. If you have any questions about the IFC VTI program and how we help institutions on employability programs, please don't hesitate to contact either Dina or myself. Our emails are available on the agenda. And Dina has also shared our website. It's now time for the closing ceremony. So I'll ask you to switch to the main room for that, and hopefully we'll see you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Amy. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Thank you, everybody.